Good evening, and welcome to the UCC Valley Forge Talent Cavalcade. I'm Jim McKinley, and once again, I am blessed to be your Master of Ceremonies. What a wonderful evening of talent we have in store for you. Like the fabled Star of Bethlehem that shone 2,000 years ago, the stars of our show are ready to shine forth for you. After 2 years of mass shutdowns and COVID protocols, I am so grateful and thank God that you are with us here in our beautiful sanctuary, celebrating this showcase of talent. First, we need to get through my opening monologue. So let's not waste another minute. Before we get underway, though, we ask that you unwrap all things that crinkle, silence all things electronic, and absolutely no speaking in tongues during tonight's performances. They say that confession is good for a troubled soul. So I have a confession to make. As many of you know, I am religious to a fault. But I didn't come by that faith easily. For me, it's been a rough and tumbled journey to forgiveness and salvation. As many know, I grew up in the Bronx in New York City in a deeply religious family. I wasn't just Catholic. I was Irish Catholic. That's the hands-on version of Christianity. Are you familiar with the practice of laying on of hands? In the Irish Catholic faith, the laying on of hands would typically involve some bruising and a few loose teeth. What does it say about a religion that to prove you're an adult, you have to be able to take a punch from a priest, and not just any priest, but a bishop no less? Now we know the rules of engagement. You can never hit a priest. Do you know what happens if you hit a priest, even accidentally? You go straight to hell. Straight to hell. Have you ever been told you were going to be sent straight to hell? Well, what the hell does that mean? Are there side trips you can take on your way to hell? I mean, optional excursions? If so, I'd like to know. Maybe I'd like to take a few while I'm still alive. You know, if I'm going straight to hell anyway. Can you imagine if they had a straight to hell travel agency? I can name a few places I went to where I thought I was in hell. Now, the rules of engagement for nuns are different. They're the enforcers. They'll provoke fights just to trigger action. You can't fall for it. I never let a nun put me next to a kid who picks fights. I knew better. Nuns are scary, spooky, and confusing. They all had men's names, like Sister Finbar and Samuel Joseph. Women with men's names. What's up with that? My favorite was Sister Don Corleone, the mafia sister. Are you familiar with nuns' habits? In this case, I mean their clothes. They're sort of burqas with extra starch. You always wondered, but were never allowed to, what was going on under all those robes. Then there are the rosaries. These are not rosaries you carry in your pocket. These are about 12 feet long, wrap around their waists, and at the end is a weighted crucifix. They swing like a lasso. They're like nunchucks. In fact, that's how nunchucks got their name. Nuns also employ a secret form of martial arts known only to other nuns. It involves the use of stress positions. That includes kneeling on hard marble for long periods, or stuffing one into a cramped confessional while being interrogated by a cloaked figure in a Roman collar. Stress? You want to imagine stress? Try taking a test with a nun in the room. They don't move, just hover silently. Trust me, you hear a nun coming, it's too late. They're on you like Jesus on the cross. Forget the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. In my family, the big three were Jesus, Mary, and John Kennedy. I was nearly an adult before I knew that Jesus and John Kennedy weren't brothers. That's because I was taught that Jesus was Irish. Not only was Jesus Irish, he was a redhead to boot. In fact, in early church texts, he's referred to not as Jesus Christ, but as Ginger Christ. Yeah. This is an actual photo taken of Ginger Christ. How could that be? It was taken on an iPhone made by Jesus and Joseph out of wood and straw. It's in the Vatican, next to the true cross. Honest to God. There's a lot more evidence Jesus was Irish. Take the fact he was 33, not married, hung around with 12 guys, never seemed to date or have a steady girlfriend. His mother thought he was God, and he thought his mother was a virgin. That's practically proof he was Irish. My high school was Cardinal Hayes Penitentiary for Boys, where I was taught by archdiocesan priests and Irish Christian brothers. My favorite was Brother Mickey Finn. You know, some inmates call their prison the big house. In the case of Hayes, it was the big schoolhouse. I was sentenced to 4 years at Hayes with no time off for good behavior. It's called serving your penance. It can be summed up in 4 words. Boys enter, men depart. Don't get me wrong, I was grateful to go to Hayes, just not at the time. For college, I went to the old FU, Fordham University, another great Bronx institution. That's where I had the Jesuits. Are you familiar with the Jesuits? In religious circles, they're referred to as God's Marines. These are the guys that came up with waterboarding and the Spanish Inquisition. Tough. One of our gym teachers was named Lombardi. Yeah, Vince Lombardi. And most schools have guidance counselors. We had an exorcist. I know, UCC doesn't believe in that stuff. If you went to Fordham, you would. Believe me, I dated a co-ed who was possessed, and not in a good way. Now, growing up in the Bronx, I knew a lot of guys named Jesus. Funny, none of them were Jewish. But I also knew a lot of Jews. In fact, I lived in a neighborhood that at one point was more than 80% Jewish. That meant it was more Jewish than Jerusalem. It taught me a lot. Do you know why they can't keep rabbis in jail? Because they eat lox. Bagels and lox. I also can't wait to meet our new minister. Like him, I dabbled in Eastern religions. I studied Zen Buddhism in New York. I met my Zen master at a Chinese restaurant. He taught me so much. Grasshopper, he said, you can give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish and he'll spend that day in a boat drinking beer. Such wisdom. I asked my guru, why do you meditate so much? He said it beats doing nothing. You know, now I spend a lot of time with our grandson, Aiden, in Lancaster. And I've really gotten into the Amish. I dig the clothes and the lifestyle, but every time I'm there, I feel like I'm in a lost episode of Green Acres. The Amish said, we had enough of that technology thing. Water and steam are good enough for us. You can keep all the headaches. I like that. Find a century and stick with it. In fact, I got my COVID vaccine in Lancaster because they're not into the technology. They administer the vaccine using wooden needles. Wooden needles. Then they reuse the needles to make Amish quilts. Isn't that clever? Here's the Lancaster mega vaccination site. The women knit for days. They made hundreds of quilts with thousands of needles. All the doses were J&J. No one came back for a second shot. There's been some big news out in Lancaster. Did you hear about the new rooftop restaurant? It's on the ground floor. Amish don't take elevators. What about the Amish woman shunned for promiscuity? Would you believe it? She was 2 men a night. 2 men a night. Get it? You know, these folks, though, do have some strange illnesses, like maple syrup urine. Ever heard of it? Me neither. But it's one of the reasons why I never eat at the Waffle House on Route 30 anymore. People ask me, how did I end up at UCC Valley Forge? There's an easy answer for that. I live right around the corner, and the church is within the boundaries of my house arrest monitoring system. Right now, the Witness Protection Program thinks I'm sitting in my family room watching Netflix. I consider myself lucky, though. I feel like I found a real spiritual home here at UCC Valley Forge. Every year or two, I get to do the talent show and recycle a bunch of old jokes. Rosemary's grateful I found something to recycle. Most of all, I consider myself blessed to introduce our next act. You probably are too.